So, where do we start?
Well, you know, one of the things I was thinking about too, in Dorothy's description a couple of days ago about, you know, being in Vermont and having the hiking trails go off in all directions, and doing an institutional ethnography, there are all these trails you can follow, and you're on a terrain, and there are tracks you might want to follow, but what you're doing in developing your problematic or your focus and direction is you're laying your magnifying glass on an area. But one of the key things that you left out, which I remember, is that there's always this arrow that says you are here.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right?
Good
Yeah.
point.
And any, you know, you go to a mall map or whatever, and you know, there's the you are here. So this is absolutely fundamentally profound
Yeah.
in institutional ethnography, right? So, and you know, yesterday I was saying, after you began, I said, but where do you start? So,
Yeah.
and you know, when we talk about drawing on using your own experience and knowledge as a resource, and bringing that in to that's essential. That you in the relations that you're exploring, and being in on the terrain that you're standing on, that embodiedness is something that people have written about, like Tim Diamond, like Marge. They have been concerned a lot about, you know, embodiedness. But we are in our bodies, and that includes our consciousnesses, and that includes how we know what to do where we are with other people.
It's actually rather you know, where I got that from originally is from the things on the wall, where you have sort of a map of and then you've got this little thing, you are out, you are here.
Yeah.
And it sort of returns you to, you know, where you really are, you know, because, and, yeah, it's, I think that's very good that you reminded us of that.
So you start where you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So now start to tell us, where did you start? Where were you? Say, where were you when you met Bill? Or what were the circumstances?
Oh, well, I met Bill under typical working circumstances.
Tell us about them.
When I started working at that regional center, I was assigned to be the case manager for the group home. So in fact, I actually remember the first time going to their house, because it was a beautiful, very fancy house in a nice area, and the group of clients had lived together for 20 plus years. So it's just this family home that had pictures of these amazing trips they'd gone on to all over, everywhere. And meeting him, and he was obsessed with baseball and the Padres, and
So he was in a group home already?
Mm-hmm.
And that group home was the beautiful house?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was a small provider who only owned 2 homes, as opposed to being a corporation that has, you know, 10, 20 homes. So it was a small group home provider, and unusual. I remember it being a very unusual group home.
In what way?
It was really like a family home. The relationships between the people living there and the staff.
How long had Bill lived there?
I want to say over 20 years, but I would have
20 years.
a really long time.
How could they take him out of that?
Right. And
How
that
many
was-
others?
There were 5 others,
Oh,
and they each had their own bedroom, which is unheard of.
And how many staff?
1 staff.
1.
Yeah. So
And what would they do? What, this staff person was, what was it, was this staff person a social worker? You said you were a social worker.
Yeah, I was the
Working
case
for the
manager.
regional center, right?
Right. The staff would be, in technical language, the direct service provider. So she lived in the home with them and
Okay.
managed food, doctors.
So she lived in the home of them.
Okay. So is she hired privately? Like
She's hired by the owner of the group home.
and so these are private?
Yes.
Okay. And so there's some kind of contract? What's this relationship between the regional centered case manager?
The service
and the-
providers are funded by the group, the regional centers.
Oh.
So regional centers pay the group homes per client and monitor the care.
Okay. Okay, so there's an overseeing kind of relationship. Okay. And contractual.
Yep.
Right? Right, just to get a picture there. Okay, and here's Bill. Yes, 5 others. And so when you're also hired by the regional center, and how often do you visit Bill? And you're not related to the other 5?
I'm also their caseworker.
For all 6
For all
of them?
6, I have,
Oh, okay,
in that regional center, I was in the group home placement unit where we all would just be assigned different group homes and we'd have the whole house.
okay, okay.
Which was great
Interesting.
because you'd have to see each client quarterly, so every 3 months, depending on their birth month. So technically I was there once a month or every other month for someone and would usually see all of them.
Okay.
Or I'd go to work to see them.
Okay.
Whatever worked.
Okay, so quarterly, you would see.
A minimum of quarterly.
So we've got Bill here. I mean, you know, it's very built up and messy, but we're really starting so we've got some different levels here. But we have Bill, and we're wanting to really get Bill, focus on Bill, because right now we're gonna talk through Bill's scenario.
Okay.
All right, because this was the one individual who's who's been drawn into some other kinds of settings outside of these settings, right? So, I wanted to ask a question about the circumstances of the individuals in the group home. So they live in a group home all the time, have their own bedroom, and do their activities with this group, with this staff person. And how often do these people see their family or spend time with their family?
It varies on the individual.
So with Bill, for example?
I think Bill, from what I remember, he'd maybe go home once a month for a weekend, maybe holidays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we had talked yesterday, you talked about, we sort of identified what we're interested in the institutional process that he was drawn into.
Right.
And there was something that suddenly activated a process that took him out of this setting and situation.
Yeah.
Right? So can you tell us about that? What, you are here. What starts to shift this way of his everyday living?
I got a call from the home. I had never really heard from his family. I had worked with him for about a year
Okay.
before all of this, and I had never heard from family. They had never attended his meetings. So, I mean, to me, he was doing fine. There were just no issues.
So you got a call from the,
Service provider.
from her, this
Yeah,
person?
a group home,
Okay,
saying she was worried about an interaction she'd had with Bill's mom about medication. The mom had said she'd stopped giving Bill medications on the weekend. And Bill's behaviors when he was coming home were a little challenging because he wasn't being given his medication as he should have been. So
And
the
he was
mom,
getting medication provided by his mother.
she should have been giving it to him on the weekends when he was
Oh, I see, but
home.
he wasn't, as she.
But she wasn't giving it to him.
So yeah, right.
okay.
And so
So this says medication was
Yeah.
changed by the mother, so Bill's behavior changed.
it did.
Okay, so there's,
And then,
When he was off his medication, his
Yeah.
behavior changed.
right, which
Very simple, yeah.
is, yeah,
okay, so this was noticed at the home,
right.
and did she then maybe have a conversation with the mom asking her about that?
She did, and the mom was honest and said, oh, well, I'm not giving it to him on the weekends, he doesn't need it. So she explained, you can't, first off, it's dangerous to stop medications and not take them as directed. And it's impacting the medications working right as they should. So she had the doctor write a letter saying, this is dangerous, if you keep doing this, we'll have to call APS, the Adult Protective Services, because you're jeopardizing his placement, because legally, the group home is responsible for giving out the medication. But since the liability would have fallen on the group home, and so if it's not documented that he got his meds, the group home could be in trouble. So the group home, in a way, threatened the mom, saying, if you keep doing this, we're gonna have to make a report to APS. And then,
Okay, wait. So what I want to show in here, and what you will want to show, is the work of the group home. So there's all of this lies in here. In this work of this is where you bring the work of the service provider in. That because, you know, she's called you, she's talked to the mother, she's identified the behavior change. She's written this letter to the mother, right? And then obviously she's copied some people, probably.
yeah,
And what this letter to the mother has drawn on is this whole institutional apparatus in here, which involves this organization. And would also likely involve the court. Not yet,
not yet.
but this is like this is like preparatory
Yeah, I mean,
to a process.
yeah, because what happened, mom became upset that she was being told what to do with her son. And when we were explaining, cause then she was saying, oh, well, maybe we'll just move Bill out. And we're like, well, that's Bill's choice. Like, you can't just make him move if he doesn't wanna move. And that's, I think, when mom started thinking about taking the rights, so she could legally make him move.
I think what is essential to get in here, which would be a layer of mapping. And it's certainly a layer of work organization of the group home. That's important because of the legalities involved in providing the medication. It's that provision of medication is being monitored and regulated. There's likely, if this person isn't a nurse, there are medical procedures and so on for tracking and monitoring that medication provision within the group home.
Right.
And that work is the work of the group home.
Right.
And apart from the financial and contractual stuff, this is the essential and crucial, I believe, administrative stuff that about medications that has to be shown in here.
Right.
How that's regulated, how the group home does that work. And then, you know, you're going to be able to see more clearly where rights of the where certain rights and obligations and liabilities come in.
Right, right,
Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah.
All right. So I can't draw all that in here because we're also wanting to get to what I'm beginning to track here. If you see this, it's almost like in a linear fashion. We're starting, here's where you start when you meet Bill and what his situation is. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. But what I'm doing here is I'm starting with a temporal sequence that's activated here. Okay, so this all would be over here as kind of, here's the group home situation, and this in your account.
So it's in its own kind of area.
This is here, and this is the situation, and these are the real circumstances, and here is how this is organized. Institutionally, you have to show the actual conditions in which, Bill is living in the group home to be able to pick up these threads. Like, you have to lay out the terrain, right?
Insert
And-
context. Mhm. Yeah.
The institutional, what did you say? Institutional context.
Mhm.
Sure. But this is how, you have a kind of family story of the argument, but you're wanting to get more deeply into the
Right, because,
institutional.
yeah, everything was really sparked by paperwork and documenting, and the home being scared about documenting and having responsibility for not giving the meds or.
Yes, and this is what this letter to the mother, have you a copy of that?
No,
Okay.
no. I did take copies of the conservatorship request for Bill.
Yeah, okay, so
Um,
we're going to get there because there's a sequence in
Right.
here.
But no, I don't have the letter. And I can't even remember the specifics, but I remember them threatening with APS and getting the doctor's opinion on it.
Okay, and so there is a doctor's opinion behind here.
Yeah.
So there's also another text in here, behind, which is the doctor's
The
letter.
medical,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just gonna put med. All right, so that's important in terms of activating this whole process that you're interested in. It's really important to have that groundwork there, because then you see you have the adult, so the regional center, so the adult protection services, is that a state level?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting, even though the work that I do is absolutely mapping, and you always have a timeline along the bottom, always. We're always mapping a temporal sequence, but it's one that brings in the hierarchical. So at the state level, and I'm just gonna say state here, and you've got region here, right? But the APS is at this level, okay, state level. I mean, there may be something that you're going to find at the national level that is brought into the setting, perhaps, I'm not sure. But I want you to see that even though we're mapping a temporal institutional sequence, all of these hierarchical accountability processes are brought in
Right,
as well,
right.
okay? So, and this is done here in this letter, and that's why I'm saying this letter to the mother that brings in the medical doctors, information about, his medication and the requirement of the home, so that we have this, you can see the institutional relations there already, right? So you lay that out at the beginning of your dissertation, of your account,
Right.
right? And it starts from you are here,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You're embedded in that, you're part of that, you're participating in that.
Yeah.
and something happens there that activates this temporal sequence that has consequences that you're concerned about. Okay, so that's where you start.
Okay.
So, okay?
Yeah.
We're good?
This is awesome.
All right, so you see how messy this is. And you also see you see the complexity.
Yeah.
And so what is, you know, the big feature of institutional ethnography is it handles complexity, right? And how you handle it is from talking to people, right? And learning what they do and how they put their work together. Yeah. And create these institutional forces that come to have, you know,
Yeah.
control over them, right? And in what ways they do.
Right.
So this is why I'm saying this board is inadequate.